I mean, there's only a few people talking out.
Well, I agree.
Most people are afraid to say anything about 9/11. You know, they think you're crazy if you do.
Well, since you bring that up, you've been attacked by a lot of establishment people, but you've also gotten a lot of support, and the polls show the majority of Americans believe they've been lied to about the story. I mean, obviously, you told the truth about 9/11. Why did you decide to take that plunge?
Well, you know, when I started, and I really didn't take the plunge, I simply asked questions that to me have not been adequately answered. You know, and I consider myself a demolition expert because I spent, you know, 4 years on active duty in the Navy as a member of the underwater demolition team. I was trained by the best demolition men the United States has. And every time I watch those buildings come down now over and over again, and I look at a building that's been demolitioned, they're identical, you know, when you watch them fall. But yet, if you bring that up or state that, right away you're considered crazy. And how dare you make a statement like that? How dare you be so un-American? How dare you? And it goes on and on and on.
Think about it. Willie Nelson, Jesse Ventura, the former German defense minister, high-level members of the Japanese parliament, the former Italian president, coming out and questioning the official story or coming right out and saying it's an inside job. I mean, you cannot downplay this, but the establishment tries. Governor?
Yep. I want to read this, Alex, and then I want to ask your general audience, and it'll be a good segue to go maybe to callers. But this is a quote by a pretty famous person, and when you hear it, it really, to me, parallels the last 8 years of thought process here in the United States, where I've been saying that I'm kind of out of the loop now, or it seems that I am. I'll just read it, okay? Here it is. Quote, "Naturally, the common people don't want war. But after all, it is the leaders of the country who determine the policy. And it is always a simple matter to drag the people along, whether it is a democracy or a fascist dictatorship or a parliament or a communist dictatorship. Voice or no voice, the people always can be brought to the bidding of the leaders. This is easy. All you have to do is tell them they are being attacked and denounce the pacifists for lack of patriotism and exposing the country to danger." Now, Alex, do you agree that that seems to be the mental philosophy we've had here since 9/11?
Yes, and that's Hermann Goering, head of the Luftwaffe.
You know your stuff well. That's Hermann Goering, a quote from a Nazi. Now, it troubles me greatly when I start looking at philosophy and how our government seems to be operating, and when it starts paralleling Nazis, isn't that about time a flag should fly up for us as citizens?
You're right, and there's no doubt. I mean, even Hitler didn't just attack Poland. He staged an attack on their own military base and later admitted it or firebombed his own Reichstag to get his police state going. And we see last week the Democrats supposedly are so good. No, they said, yeah, we're against the Fourth Amendment.
Repeat for all of us to know, what's the Fourth Amendment again, Alex?
That is the fact that they have to have a warrant and witnesses to search you or tap your phone.
Yeah, and the Democrats voted last week to continue that policy, that they don't have to, that they can invade your privacy and literally disregard the Fourth Amendment.
We'll be right back, Governor. I already really liked Jesse Ventura since I was a kid growing up watching Predator and the Running Man. We even watched him some on wrestling, rolling around laughing. I always liked the villains, but in reality, he's the good guy. And then when he came on my show and talked about 9/11 being an inside job, you know, I'd met him before that, when he questioned the official story of 9/11. Really, his stock went up to 100% for me, right up there, really even past Ron Paul. Ron Paul has said that he thinks they may stage attacks or may stage Gulf of Tonkin's, or that they may have let it happen, but he just won't come out and say that it looks like a controlled demolition for political reasons. I really respect Governor Jesse Ventura, and even if he doesn't announce he's running for Senate tonight on Larry King Live, you better believe I'll be watching. Hope you're watching. he's done his duty coming out on the show, questioning 9/11, speaking out against the police state and everything else he's done. Before we go back to your calls, Governor Ventura, you were speaking about the parallels with Nazi Germany and with what we're seeing in this country today. Please finish your thoughts on that.
Well, Alex, it troubles me when you, for the last 8 years, you can take a quote like I read from Herman Goring and apply it to the United States of America, because that's exactly what we've been told. We've been told we were attacked, which all of us saw, and of course, maybe we were, maybe we weren't. Only they know for sure, I guess. And second of all, this nonsense about, people need to remember what Thomas Jefferson said. He said, dissension is the greatest form of patriotism. And in our republic, that is true. But yet, in the last 8 years, we've had it pounded into our heads that if you dissent, you're unpatriotic, that if you don't go along to get along, you're unpatriotic, and then they try to hit you with, if you don't support everything we're doing, you're against the troops. Well, that is not true. I'm a veteran, and to me, supporting the troops means not sending them in harm's way unless it's vital or absolutely necessary. And in my opinion, the Iraq War was certainly not vital, and it certainly wasn't necessary.
Well, there's also...
And I support our troops by bringing them home. Who, to quote John Kerry after Vietnam, who will be the last man to die in Iraq?
Well, you're right. We also have this hiding behind the flag, which is particularly despicable. They always say the flag is the last refuge of tyrants. Patriotism is the last refuge of tyrants and thugs. And they're the ones that promised the troops they'd be home in 6 months and knew they'd be there for a decade in their own Pentagon plans. They're the ones that want to just destabilize the region, not bring democracy, as they say publicly. And it's just so despicable to see them continue over and over again to get away with this and then have the nerve. Bill O'Reilly goes on TV, it's a talking point on Fox and other places, and says, once the war starts, you're to shut your mouth and you don't have any say, when I thought the troops were fighting so that we'd have a say. And then you have 75% or more of all the donations from the troops to Republicans going to Ron Paul, the only anti-war candidate. I mean, the majority of the troops in major polls are against the war. So how dare these chicken hawks claim that we're not allowed to criticize this illegal war?
And you know what gets me too, Alex? Exactly what you said, these chicken hawks. Because the majority of the great war supporters of this country are the very people who they themselves would never put themselves in the line of danger, would never put a uniform on. And I'm talking about our current Commander-in-Chief, George W. Bush. He leads the way. Dick Cheney with, 5 deferments during Vietnam. Our own illustrious Norm Coleman, the senator from Minnesota, who was a huge war protester at Hofstra University when he was back in college, when his little hinder was on the line, and when he might have to go to war, he wanted no part of it. But today this guy's rubber-stamped everything with the war, and he's got a kid who's of age to go serve. Do you think his kid's in the military heading to Iraq? Absolutely not.
Well, Karl Rove's son lives right here in Austin, and he's of military age, and we don't see him going.